Hello everyone, hope you all are doing well. So today we are going to do topic 26 of paper 2, that is heterosis. So what is this heterosis? This term was given by Soule. Term was first coined by Soule. What is this heterosis is? So it is defined as the superiority of F1 hybrid over both of its parent in terms of yield or some other character. It is also known as hybrid figure. So what is this superiority of F1 hybrid? Suppose there are two parents P1, P2. When we cross each other, what we get? F1. This is first filial generation. So this generation is F1. Suppose we get X. So this X1 is F1 generation. So the superiority of F1 hybrid over both of its parents. So it will be superior than both of its parents. This is what heterosis is. So in terms of yield and some other character. What are the applications of heterosis? Applications. First of all, there will be increased yield. High yield of grain, fruit, leaf, seed, tuber, biomass, etc. Secondly, there will be increased reproductive ability. It can be seen in potato and sugarcane. Increased size can be seen in tomato and cabbage. Better quality, increase in quality. Earlier flowering and maturity. It can be seen in hybrid varieties of tomato. Greater resistance to disease pest. 6 number. Greater resistance to disease and pest. Greater adaptability. Can adapt to more extreme conditions than their parents. Faster growth rate, high growth rate. Increase in number of plant parts. Here I am writing number 9. Increase in number of plant parts. Example can be seen in hybrid varieties of bean. So this is what heterosis is and what are the applications of heterosis. Now moving on, what are the physiological basis of heterosis? Let me grab it first. Physiological basis of heterosis. So here we have to study a hypothesis that certainly clears this concept of physiological basis of heterosis is Aswige hypothesis. Aswige hypothesis of Aswige hypothesis of greater initial mass. So here you will see that in this thesis is that heterozygosity results from greater initial immune weight of embryo. Heterozygosity results from greater initial weight. Greater initial weight of embryo. Secondly, we will see that hybrid behavior is nothing more than maintenance of initial advantage embryo size. So what is hybrid behavior? It is nothing, just maintenance of initial advantage in embryo size. Maintenance of initial advantage in embryo. This is embryo size. So as greater initial weight, the embryo is bigger in the start. So when we maintain this initial advantage, then we will get hybrid behavior. Thirdly, we will see that hybrids do not differ from their parents in relative growth rate. It is thus the embryo size, the initial advantage. And when it comes to growth rate, hybrids do not differ from parents. In growth rate. They grow at same speed, but as there is some initial advantage in hybrid varieties, so it seems to us that their growth is more. Now I will say stages of physiological manifestation of heterosis, where we can manifest heterosis. At which stages we can manifest heterosis? Stages of, this is the same part here of this, stages of physiological manifestation of heterosis. At which stage can we manifest heterosis? First one is at the stage of seed and embryo development. Seed and embryo development. Here we see that hybrid embryo exhibited greater vigor in earlier stages. So at this stage we can do, because we know that there is greater initial weight of embryo at initial stage, initial advantage. So at this stage, early seeding growth, so hybrid shows higher growth rate than inbred immediately after germination, but not later. So as I have discussed here, they don't differ from parents from growth rate in normal terms, but at initially. So hybrid show greater growth rate. They will show greater growth rate at immediately after germination, not later. Germination and not later. And third, so here we also see that embryo size is more significant than reserve food material. The size of embryo size is more significant than reserve food material. So you can see that at early seeding growth, not at later stages, but at early stage we can manifest heterosis. Now we'll write one more point. And also at later seeding growth, how we can do manifest heterosis at later seeding growth? Root diameter content of hybrids to be intermediate between parents. So we see here that root diameter of hybrids are between intermediate. This is intermediate between parents. And also we say that we also see that hybrids utilize more amount of NP than inbred lines. So hybrids also utilize more nitrogen and phosphorus than inbred lines. And also the catalyze activity was higher in heterosis hybrids. So in heterosis hybrids, the catalase activity was also higher. So it also enhances the growth rate. So these are the stages where we can in which we can manifest heterosis, and how we can manifest we have discussed earlier. Now we will move to the next topic of this session, that is molecular mechanism involved in heterosis. Molecular mechanism involved in heterosis. Molecular mechanism involved in heterosis. The first point, that is intermediate amount of single gene product. Intermediate amount of single gene product. So here we see that in some cases the heterozygotes produces an intermediate amount of gene product. We have discussed earlier also. Heterozygotes, this is heterozygotes produces intermediate amount of single gene product, which may lead to increased vigor and growth rate. And as they produce intermediate amount, this can lead to increased vigor and growth rate. Such a situation would be encouraged when the homozygote for the dominant allele. This situation would be encountered when the homozygote for dominant allele, that is homozygote for dominant allele produced more than that of recessive allele, recessive allele. Produce more than that of recessive allele, produces less than optimal level. So what happens? The dominant allele produces more than recessive alleles, and recessive alleles produce less than their normal, less than optimal levels, optimum level of products. Hope you understand here that heterozygotes intermediate amount of single gene product leads to high increased vigor and growth rate, and homozygotes for dominant allele produce more and recessive more than optimum, and recessive allele produce less than optimum. So this can be seen in bread mold neurospora. No, sorry, this is not an example related to I think this breeding or agriculture point of view to crops. I don't think we should take it. Separate. Now second point is separate gene product. Separate gene product. Here two allele of single gene may produce proteins with slightly different functional properties. So two allele of single gene product produces proteins with slightly different functions and properties, The heterozygote for such a gene could produce the proteins encoded by both alleles. So what happens here? Heterozygote for such a gene produces proteins. Heterozygote here produces proteins encoded by both alleles. Whereas homozygote would have only one of that protein. Homozygotes here for both, in homozygotes for only one. So they will have only one of that protein. Thus the heterozygote may be expected to be more adapted to change of environment, as heterozygote will have both the alleles of protein, and homozygote only one. So heterozygote will be more adapted. More adapted to changes in environment. Its adaptability will be higher in cases in changes in environment related to homozygotes. Hope you understand it. Now moving to third point, that is combined gene product. Third one is combined gene product. So here many proteins are homopolymers, that is made of two or more identical polypeptide. You all know that many proteins are homopolymers, that is they are made of two or more identical polypeptide. Two or more identical polypeptide. More identical because they are more identical polypeptide. In case of products of two alleles of concerned gene in the heterozygote would combine a product and combine to produce a protein molecule with somewhat different properties. So what happens, as they have two identical properties, but in heterozygote they will combine two allele for protein, which will produce molecule with somewhat different properties as compared to the proteins found in homozygotes. So they will, when these two will when two alleles will be mixed for making the properties. So here the properties of protein will be different. Properties of protein will be different as compared to proteins found in two homozygotes, as compared to proteins of homozygotes. So let me explain in simple words. Suppose it is a homozygote. There are two homozygotes, homozygote 1 and homozygote 2. These have two proteins. Here one for this have this for this homozygote, and H2 have one protein. So these have different properties. But when in heterozygote these two protein combines, so their properties change while combining. If they combine, their properties change as compared to their properties here in homozygotes. And this new molecule with different properties is what hybrid product is. This is what hybrid product is. I hope you all explain this. Now moving to point number 4, that is effects in two different tissues. Effects in two different tissues. In some cases the heterozygote superiority may be arise in somewhat strange manner. So there could be some strange, heterozygotes can have be superior in somewhat strange manner. The two alleles in homozygous state may produce high level of enzyme in two different tissues. So what happens in homozygote? In homozygote, the two enzymes for proteins, suppose there are two enzymes for protein P1 and P2. So they will produce high level of enzyme in two different tissues. They will produce high level of enzyme. For P1, suppose for one tissue 1, and for P2 is for tissue 2. So they will produce high level. But when it's come to heterozygote, they will produce intermediate level of enzyme in both the tissues. Intermediate, not high, not low, intermediate. So in tissue 1 also intermediate and tissue 2 also intermediate. So these help in higher growth rate, which we have seen in Abbey's hypothesis, that they have initial advantage, but due to intermediate growth rate, due to intermediate effects, they will show high growth rate. So this is one. Now moving to next point, that is last point, that is expression of greater number of genes. Expression of greater number of genes. So here we see that studies on gene expression in maize shows, through experiments on maize, we can see that the level of expression of certain loci is greater in hybrids as compared to theirs in parents. So in certain loci, the expression is greater in hybrids as compared to their parents. In parents, their expression is not as much greater when compared to their sons, that is hybrids, that is F1 generation. In general, a considerably higher number of gene expressed in hybrids than in their parents. So in the hybrids, there is higher number of gene expressed. Higher genes express themselves as compared to their parents. In parents, there are less number of genes expressing themselves as compared to their hybrids. So I hope you understand this. And this was more higher in heterotic than non-heterotic hybrids. In heterotic hybrids, this expression was more higher as compared to non-heterotic hybrids. Here the expression was low, and in heterotic hybrids the expression was high. I hope you all understand this. Now moving to the next topic of this session, that is over-dominance hypothesis. Over-dominance hypothesis. So this was given by East and Soule in 1908. It is also known as simulation of heterosis, cumulative action of divergent gene, single gene heterosis. It is also known as single gene heterosis, simulation of heterosis, superdominance, or you can say over-dominance, etc. Over-dominance hypothesis as discussed here. So what happens? According to this, heterosis is a result of superiority of heterozygotes over its both homozygous parents. Thus heterosis is directly proportional to heterozygosis. So here the heterozygotes hybrid or a result of superiority of heterozygote. Heterozygote is superior than both of its homozygous parents. And this superiority arises due to this superiority of heterozygotes or both of its homozygous parents arises due to number one, production of superior hybrid substance in heterozygote which is completely different from either of homozygous parent. Production of some hybrid substance which is different from both of its homozygous parents. Secondly, greater buffering capacity in heterozygote. Greater buffering capacity in heterozygote. Resulting from cumulative action of divergent alleles or simulation of divergent alleles. Due to simulation of this great buffering capacity comes due to simulation of divergent alleles. So in 1936, East further elaborated that combination of more divergent alleles will exhibit higher heterosis than less divergent alleles. When these divergent alleles will combine, it will show more hypothesis with in relation to less divergent combinations. So these divergent combinations show more hypothesis when compared to less divergent combinations. and this over-dominance has been reported in Barley. Over-dominance is reported in Barley. So this was over-dominance hypothesis. Hope you all understand it. Now moving on, the last topic of this session. So this session is getting little bit of longer, but there are some tough concepts which you need to understand. The last topic of this session is that heterosis is observed in both self and cross-pollinated crops. Heterosis is observed in both self and cross-pollinated, self-pollinated and cross-pollinated crops. But hybrid varieties are more common in cross-pollinated. But hybrid varieties are more common in cross-pollinated. Why? This was asked in previous years, so we need to discuss it, because we know how important previous years are for agriculture. So heterosis can be seen in both, but why hybrids are mainly seen in cross-pollination? Why? The reasons, first of all, is that in general cross-pollinated varieties, they show heterosis, particularly when inbred lines are used as parents. So general cross varieties show heterosis when inbred lines are used as parent. Secondly, we see that in many cross-pollinated species, heterosis has been commercially exploited. In cross-pollinated species, heterosis has been commercially exploited. In crops such as maize, pearl millet, cotton, onion, etc. In many crosses in self-pollinated crops also, crops show heterosis, but magnitude of heterosis is generally slower than that of cross-pollinated. In self-pollinated also they show heterosis, but the magnitude is lesser as compared to heterosis in cross-pollinated. So the magnitude of heterosis in cross-pollinated is more than the magnitude of heterosis in self-pollinated. But in some self-pollinated crops also heterosis is large enough to be used for production of hybrid varieties. But in some self-pollinated species also, in some self-pollinated, the heterosis is present in such amount that there are high amount of heterosis, so that not that much high as compared to cross-pollinated, but in certain amount where hybrid varieties can be produced, such as rice, wheat, etc. The chief drawback in the use of hybrid varieties in self-pollinated is the difficulty in production of large quantities of hybrid seeds. And the chief reason why heterosis has not been successful, or hybrid varieties production is not been successful in self-pollinated. Why not successful? Because it is very difficult to produce large quantities of seeds, large quantities of hybrid seed. So I hope you all understand this. That is all for today. Keep making notes, keep revising your notes. I always say the notes are your Brahmastra. Then the topics I am teaching, almost every question will be directly from the topics from here. So keep revising your notes. For any queries, do comment. If you like it, please press the like button. Do share and subscribe. That's all for today. Have a nice day. Thank you.